Hello, everybody. Welcome to Little Rusty Buckets. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like. Trying to hit 30K over here, so that would be much appreciated. There's been a couple of trades that have gone down since I've last been recording, so I'm just going to run through. I think there's basically 3 of them that are worthy of mention. Not going to be talking about just draft picks getting moved around on draft night. I'm sure you either did not care or already saw it happen. But I want to give my thoughts on some of these actual trades because as small as all of these deals are, they actually do have some level of standing for what it means for the teams that made these deals, specifically the Phoenix Suns acquiring Mark Williams in exchange for their 29th overall pick in this year's draft, as well as a 2029 first-round pick that is the least favorable between Cleveland, Minnesota, and Utah, which wouldn't say it's out of the realm of possibility that by 2029 all 3 of those teams aren't very good, so that actually could be a decent draft pick, but least favorable probably means it's probably going to end up in the 20s at the very least. Who knows? But they are making a pretty clear statement, I think, in that trade that they are making moves to be competitive. You are not making this move. You're not giving up draft capital here unless you want to be competitive. Because while Mark Williams is young, he will be 24 going into next season, going into his 4th year at that. The most amount of games he has played in his career were this season when he played 44. So that kind of undermines the type of value that he could theoretically have. He puts up great numbers in the minutes that he plays, but he plays 26 and a half minutes. Part of that is also a stamina thing, but it's also just like you're basically putting this dude on a permanent minutes restriction if you trade for him. Last year, 15 points, 10 rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds per game, 1.2 blocks as well. Like, his numbers are excellent. He basically puts up borderline star big man numbers. In fact, if you were to look at his numbers from this year, his per 36 comes out to 20.6 points, 13.7 rebounds, 3.4 assists as well, which is a huge leap. He got up to 2.5 assists per game this year for his actual stats, and then 1.7 blocks. Like, this is a guy who puts up numbers, and he's also effective in that time. When I've seen the Charlotte Hornets live way too many times because I used to live near Charlotte. I saw him play like 3 or 4 different times, and every time he was there, I'm like, yes, this guy is the future. This guy is the center for the Charlotte Hornets, because I don't know how long you've been tracking the Charlotte Hornets, but they haven't had a really good center since Al fucking Jefferson. The best it got before that was like Cody Zeller, like truly maybe Dwight Howard for 1 year. That's as good as it's gotten for the Hornets at that position. And it kind of sucks that they had to move on from him, but it also makes sense for them. So I think this is a good deal for the Hornets. I think it is a questionable deal for the Suns. However, if this is the direction that they're choosing to go into, then it also makes complete sense. So the next move is Lonzo Ball being traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers in exchange for Isaac Okoro. And this deal, I think, is also a pretty good one on both sides of things, where the Chicago Bulls are overloaded with guards. They have too many damn guards on the team. Kobe White, Trey Jones, Ayo Dosunmu, Josh Giddey. That's 4 right there. And then they also, oh man, now I actually want to be sure, because I'm pretty sure there's other ones. I'm blanking on it right now. Probably the least I've known about the Chicago Bulls in a long time was this particular year. Yeah, I thought Javon Carter was still there, or at least was for a while. But yeah, we got Josh Giddey, Kobe White, had Zach LaVine, Ayo Dosunmu, Kevin Huerter. I don't know if he's going to stay there. Lonzo Ball, Trey Jones. We're at 6 now. Javon Carter, 7. Like, too many guards. And then when you go to look at the wings, you have Julian Phillips as well as Dalen Terry, who are, they have their upsides as defensive players. Buzelis was really great last year as a forward. Patrick Williams needs to be gone, but he's also probably not going to be for the amount of money. But they could use some wing depth, and they could use less guard depth. So overall, good trade for them. Isaac Okoro is a guy who is just not very good at three-point shooting, even though he's managed to get his regular season numbers to look pretty good. especially within the context of the system that he was in this previous year. The year before it as well, he was good, 39%, but it's on 3 attempts per game, and you have to remember not all 3-point attempts are created equal, and in the case of Isaac Okoro, overwhelmingly wide open looks because defenses do not respect him as a 3-point shooter, and we saw in this year's playoffs, though he shot 37.5%, it was on 1.8 attempts per game over 9 games. Teams were leaving him completely wide open. And yeah, that's just not going to cut it, unfortunately. He also had another year left on his deal, longer than Lonzo. Lonzo's got $10 million as an option, or as what he's making next year, and then after that, nothing, where there's going to be $11.8 million on the books for the Chicago Bulls for 2026-2027. Now, I don't think the salary situation makes that an L for the Bulls because at the end of the day, Lonzo, you weren't even all that sure you were going to get anything for him. So to get a pretty good NBA player at a reasonable price in exchange for him, I think that's a fine trade. Honestly, probably the best trade the Chicago Bulls have made in the era, in the Archerish, Karnashovish, however you say his name, era. Still haven't bothered to figure that out exactly, but that's also a testament to how fucking terrible Chicago's trades have been historically. So yeah, I think this is good. And then for Cleveland, Lonzo Ball, I don't know how good he's going to end up being. He was interesting this year. I believe his on-off stats would suggest that he was still overall a positive player for this team. However, even with all of that, yeah, they are, oh my God, yeah, a huge swing. Offensive rating, 2.9 points better, and then opponent offensive rating is a whole 6.8 points worse when he is on the floor. So a huge swing. Overall, a plus 10 on off this year, despite the fact that his 3-point shot, 34.5%, not very good. 3.3 assists, not very good. And his defense, not quite as electric as it used to be, but he is still an impactful player, and if his 3-point shot can improve, he's certainly a much better 3-point shooter than Isaac Okoro, and he's certainly a much better playmaker than Isaac Okoro, so I just think he fits. I think this will be good, and he's big enough that, like, yeah, they got Garland and Mitchell, and they also have, why am I blanking on his name right now? I feel like I'm betraying him. Ty Jerome. He can play small forward in certain matchups, no problem. You know, he's 6'6". He's a good defender. He can defend the Aaron Wiggins of the world. I'm not saying match him up against LeBron, but he can handle pretty much anything else. So that's a good deal for Cleveland and Chicago. I like that both ways. And then finally, we have Danny Ainge losing a trade. Could you believe it? The Charlotte Hornets involved in yet another deal getting rid of a big man. This time, however, it's Jusuf Nurkic, which is great. Get that guy off your roster is always a W. But to also get a great backup in Colin Sexton, a great bench piece in Colin Sexton, while they are also getting a second-round pick in the deal. That, it seems confusing to me. Is Sexton making more money than I thought he was? Because I am a big Colin Sexton hater, always have been. However, in Utah, he's kind of changed my opinion of him because his 3-point shooting has progressively gotten better. His volume has increased, like percentage of his shots that are actually from outside has increased. He's at 40% over the last 2 years on 4 attempts per game, 18 points per game, most of it starting, some of it coming off of the bench, 4 assists per game as well, 5 the year before it. Like, the thing with Colin Sexton and the thing with players of his archetype is if you're his size, you either need to be a great defender, a great shooter, or a great playmaker. And he's not really any of those three. So I do understand why a guy who puts up 18 and 4 on great efficiency, like damn near 50, 40, 90 shooting splits, you would look at that guy and say, how is he only getting traded for a matching contract and then having to throw a second round into it? I mean, I do feel like they could have got more because he's also an expiring contract on top of everything else. So I do understand him getting less value than you would perceive, but this is a lot less value. I figured at the very least you could get a matching contract and some second round picks back, not having to send a second round pick to get rid of the guy. Just seems insane to me. I completely understand why Colin Sexton hasn't really caught on in the NBA because of the three factors that I mentioned, but he's basically as good as you can be at his size without being a great shooter, great defender, or great playmaker. And he's still a good shooter. He's still a good playmaker, and he's not the worst defensive piece. So, like, the fact that he's great inside the arc, 51% on 10 two-pointers per game, career 50% from there for, again, a small guard is really good. Good mid-range game, good floater game, not the worst slasher. Like, I really love this move for Charlotte. I think it's a home run. You turned a guy who is terrible and useless into an 18-point scorer to come off of your bench. Not to mention, you also have LaMelo Ball. And LaMelo Ball gets hurt all the fucking time, and you need a guard who can get into that starting spot and hopefully get you some offense. And while he's not going to get you offense on the level that LaMelo Ball will, he will still score 18, 20 points when you need him to, and that can potentially be the difference between winning and losing a couple of those games that Ball sits out for. So I think that's a hell of a move. They also have Trey Mann, and I do think there's a lot of overlap and ability between Trey Mann and Colin Sexton. I don't know that they would play off of each other particularly well. So I have mixed feelings on that. But given that you only had to give up Nurkic and you got draft capital back in exchange, hard to be mad at that. Hard to say that that was any kind of risk at all. Even if those two do not get on well, whatever. You can still trade one of them and zero consequence to it. So good trades. The Hornets managed to get something out of Mark Williams, 2 draft picks, one of them being a first rounder for 2029. And then also late first round pick this year, got a rookie out of him. And you got Colin Sexton for basically nothing. I like what the Charlotte Hornets are doing right now. I think they could enter next season being an interesting team. We'll see. We'll also see how their draft picks work out, because drafting a dude named Knipple maybe on another team, but if you're a dude named Knipple on the Charlotte Hornets, there's just no way. You're already in trouble there. You don't pass the name test and you're on the Charlotte Hornets. I feel bad for the guy for a variety of reasons, but good God. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.